Title: The Shadow and the Shield. Subtitle: Volume 1: The Storm Inevitable. Author name: Nagamohan Kumar Palakurthy. Chapter 1: The Ghost and His Shield. There was once a legendary FBI agent named Marcus, known to the underworld by his chilling code name, Shadow. An extraordinary patriot, Marcus was a lethal force and an absolute terror to gangs, a phantom who hunted criminals in the dark and left entire syndicates paralyzed with pure panic. Way back when he was in his late 20s, his best friend and partner was William, better known as Will Wayne. When they were young, Marcus and Will completed every mission together, operating like an unstoppable duo. Will was slightly older than Marcus and was married to Elena, who was also a dedicated FBI agent. Together, Will and Elena had a 9-year-old son named Cole. During those early years, a dangerous mafia organization known as the Syndicate, marked by their ominous symbol of a capital C nested between bat wings, ruled the criminal underworld. Marcus and his partners played a major role in busting this organization, inflicting massive damage on their entire network. However, victory came at a devastating cost. In that ruthless undercover operation, Marcus lost his entire family. His parents and his sister were brutally murdered by the gang. Elena also sacrificed her life during the mission, leaving Marcus carrying a heavy guilt, feeling that he had failed to save his best friend's wife. In the aftermath, the remnants of the syndicate used their high-level political influence to manipulate the government. Corrupt politicians twisted the narrative. Despite the organization being busted, Marcus was scapegoated and blamed for the operational losses. Broken by tragedy and unfair blame, the man who was once the underworld's greatest nightmare vanished completely. Will tried his absolute best to track down his best friend, but Marcus had completely erased his footprint. At the same time, the mob leader, Victor Warras, had lost his father and brother during the FBI's takedown. Consumed by hatred, he vowed to take ultimate vengeance on Shadow and has been hunting for him ever since. Time flew, and 20 years passed. Marcus moved to a remote, quiet village near Mount Rainier. He did not just hide, he completely rebuilt his life from the ashes under the name Thomas. He found love and peace again, marrying an elegant woman named Sarah. Sarah's father, Arthur Pendleton, is a very wealthy man and the powerful head of the village. Together, the family lives on Arthur's massive piece of land centered around a magnificent villa. The entire property is enclosed with a secure fence like a grand mansion, featuring 2 big barns beside the villa and a large staff of servants who take care of daily operations. Thomas and Sarah raised 2 beautiful twin daughters, Clara and Vivian, who are now 21 years old. They all live together in the safety and luxury of the grand villa. To the outside world, Thomas is a peaceful country gentleman. Yet, even in his 50s, he maintains his powerful physique. He is still cautious, never truly letting his guard down, knowing that the ghosts of his past could still be hunting for him. However, the past is already inside his walls. 4 years ago, a sharp young man named Luke joined the estate staff alongside 2 other operatives, a woman named Chloe and a man named Jared. Together, this elite trio smoothly integrated into the estate, taking total control of household chores and the mansion's daily routine. Luke took direct command of both massive barns, and through their dedication, the trio earned the absolute trust of the entire family. To Thomas and his family, they appear to be nothing more than loyal, hard-working employees. In reality, while Luke perfectly acts the part of an unassuming servant, he is a hawk in disguise, a brilliant, elegant FBI operative possessing the exact same rare, lethal caliber that once made Marcus a legend. The instinctual bond between the 2 men runs so deep that whenever Marcus looks at Luke, a strange familiarity stirs within him. He senses a profound closeness to the young man, yet his cautious mind cannot quite realize the truth. For Luke is none other than Cole, the son of William and Elena, a dynamic, next-generation FBI agent who carries his mother's sacrifice and his father's fierce loyalty in his blood. Far from tracking Marcus down to disrupt his life, this specialized team was deployed on a mission of absolute devotion by FBI Director William Whale himself. Having finally located his long-lost partner years ago, but choosing to respect the peace Marcus had so desperately bled for, Will sent his own son, alongside Chloe and Jared, deep undercover. Operating in the shadows of the estate, they stand as an invisible, unbreakable shield, guarding Marcus's new family from the lingering, vengeful threat of the Syndicate.
Chapter 2: The Hidden Fortress and the Secret Mission. Beyond managing the daily chores, Luke was a master of cutting-edge technology and an extraordinarily elegant operative. Hidden deep within the rustic structure of one of the massive barns lay a strictly restricted perimeter. When a concealed biometric scanner was triggered, a seamless wall slid away, completely transforming the wooden interior into a breathtaking, futuristic, sci-fi command center. This state-of-the-art nexus was lined with massive, glowing holographic screens monitoring the entire mansion's perimeter and tracking every heartbeat within the village. To secure the skies, Luke had deployed a flock of specialized surveillance drones disguised flawlessly as ordinary birds, capturing high-definition aerial intelligence fed directly to the command center. But surveillance was only the first layer. Anticipating a level of violence the family could never fathom, Luke had engineered an automated defensive armada designed to turn the estate into an impenetrable fortress. First was the drone swarm, hundreds of autonomous, AI-driven fighter drones capable of deploying instantly at Luke's verbal or cognitive command. These sleek, lethal aerial weapons could navigate tight indoor hallways or open skies, neutralizing hostile targets in a flash. Second was the K9 Battalion, a ground force battalion of 50 AI-powered mechanical fighter dogs, built for high-speed tactical takedowns, heavy armored defense, and lethal efficiency. Everything was meticulously whiteboarded and mapped across the digital screens. Complex tactical threads connected faces, international organizations, and blueprints, categorizing allies, tracing active enemies, and placing potential threats on a permanent radar. Luke was building a war machine for an inevitable storm. The true reason for this extreme preparation traced back 20 years to the night Cole's mother sacrificed her life. Marcus and his team had not just busted a mafia syndicate, they had halted a global catastrophe. The syndicate had amassed a massive stockpile of enriched, weapons-grade uranium, plotting to sell it to hostile nations, trigger worldwide panic, assassinate the president, and overthrow the government. Marcus and his unit successfully stopped the coup, but the cost was bathed in blood. Realizing that the rot reached the highest levels of government and corrupt politicians, Marcus refused to hand over the payload. Instead, he vanished into the shadows with the uranium. Thomas is the only man alive who knows where that world-altering cache is buried. Because of this, it isn't just Victor Warres seeking personal revenge, the entire global underworld and rogue intelligence networks are aggressively hunting for him to seize the ultimate global leverage. Director William Whale understood exactly why his best friend had to go rogue. Knowing he couldn't trust his own government agencies, Will secretly spent years assembling this elite, ultra-technological unit to act as Marcus's invisible guardians. Luke knew the uranium was safe in Marcus's custody, but he also knew a collision with the world's deadliest factions was a matter of when, not if. While fortifying the estate, Luke also acted as a quiet, lethal guardian angel in the village. Any local bullies or criminals who dared to step across the line or threaten Marcus's family were swiftly and silently eliminated by the team, leaving no trace behind. Yet, to the outside world, to Thomas, and to the twins, Luke remained nothing more than a funny, charming, and entirely innocent estate aide. This gentle, light-hearted persona made him magnetic. Over the last 4 years, Clara found herself falling deeply for the brilliant young caretaker, and beneath his tactical exterior, Luke had fallen just as hard for her. Bound by duty and secret identities, the two shared a profound, unspoken tension, deeply in love, but waiting for the day they could finally open up to one another. Luke played the role of the clumsy, harmless servant perfectly, hiding the wolf beneath the sheep's clothing. He kept his tech buried and his lethal combat skills dormant, waiting for the day the enemy would finally breach the gates, the day he would have to shock the family, drag them into the hidden belly of the barn, and unleash a level of sci-fi warfare they never saw coming.
Chapter 3: The Inciting Altercation and Cold Vengeance. The incident occurred on a seemingly ordinary afternoon when Sarah, Clara, and Vivian decided to head into downtown Greenwater for some errands. Luke acted as their driver, navigating the family's rugged open-top Jeep through the mountain roads. While walking through the town square, they crossed paths with a notorious group of local thugs, vicious, lawless drifters who ruled the local streets through intimidation. The gang immediately targeted the twins, hurling crude, aggressive remarks. When Sarah stepped in to protect her daughters, the confrontation escalated. Luke immediately stepped between the thugs and the family, raising his hands in a defensive, non-threatening posture, playing the role of the submissive servant. Seeing him as an easy target, the gang leader shoved Luke violently against the jeep, delivering a sharp punch that cut Luke's lip. True to his cover, Luke didn't strike back. He took the hit, stumbling backward into the dirt. Infuriated by the cruelty, Clara fiercely retaliated with scathing words, defending their caretaker. In a flash of pure malice, the gang leader backhanded Clara, and when Sarah tried to shield her daughter, she was struck as well. Before the violence could escalate further, the wail of a distant police siren echoed down the block. Realizing their time was up, the thugs scattered into the alleys. As Luke stood up to help Sarah and Clara back into the jeep, a chilling change took hold of him. For a fraction of a second, the clumsy, innocent servant vanished. Luke turned his head toward the escaping gang, his eyes narrowing into a terrifying, predatory scowl, the cold, calculating glare of an apex predator marking its prey. But as he turned back to the family, the mask was instantly back in place. He wiped the blood from his lip, apologizing profusely for not being strong enough to protect them. Driving them back to the estate, Sarah and the twins could only look at Luke with profound pity, cementing their belief that he was a gentle, soft-hearted boy who was completely out of his depth. Chapter 4. The morning news and growing doubts. The following morning, the atmosphere inside the Grand Villas dining room was warm, filled with the smell of breakfast. Arthur Pendleton sat at the head of the table, reading the morning paper, while Thomas quietly sipped his coffee, keeping a watchful eye on his family. Suddenly, the news broadcast broke the quiet morning. Breaking news: tragic accident in Greenwater Lake. 5 dead. The anchor reported that a vehicle carrying 5 local men had gone off the dangerous cliffside road at midnight, plunging into the deep, freezing waters of the lake. Initial police reports suggested the men were heavily drunk, ruling it a tragic case of drunk driving. Clara gasped, dropping her fork as the mug shots of the victims flashed on the screen. It was the exact same gang from the day before. Dad, Grandpa, look. Clara shouted, pointing at the screen. Those are the monsters who attacked us yesterday. She turned toward Luke, who was quietly refilling the juice pitchers at the side table, his face completely blank. Look, Luke, see? Justice is there. God took care of those rascals who hit you and us. They got what they totally deserved. Luke just gave a humble, innocent nod, looking down at the floor. I'm just glad they can't trouble anyone else, Miss Clara, he said softly. Sitting across the table, Thomas froze. His sharp eyes locked onto the television screen, studying the wreckage of the vehicle shown by the local news channel. As an old expert in secret operations and staged accidents, Thomas's top-notch instinct woke up. The physics of the crash were too neat. There were no skid marks at all on the road, and the exact angle of the fall, it wasn't the messy mistake of a drunk driver. It was a clean, professional job. Thomas slowly looked away from the television and fixed his gaze straight onto Luke. For a heavy, suffocating 3 seconds, the old veteran stared at the young servant, trying to see through his act. But right at that moment, Vivian asked her father a question about the estate barns, breaking the tension and drawing Thomas's attention away. Thomas looked away, shaking the thought out of his head, but a small seed of doubt had been sown. Chapter 5. Execution Logs. Moments later, Luke excused himself and walked across the courtyard, slipping into the shadow of the massive western barn. He bypassed the stables, stepped into the restricted rear tool room, and let the biometric scanner read his palm. The seamless wooden wall slid open with a pressurized hiss, and Luke stepped into the glowing, high-tech sanctuary of the command center. The heavy, metallic door sealed shut behind him. The submissive posture evaporated instantly. Luke squared his shoulders, his posture turning rigid, dominant, and military sharp. He walked over to the massive, glowing glass digital whiteboard. The night before, he hadn't just staged an accident, he had hunted them. Cole and his team had ambushed the thugs in the dead of night, completely neutralizing all 5 of them in seconds. The gang had wept, begging for mercy, but Cole's earpiece had been fed their files by Chloe, a horrific track record of unprosecuted crimes, including the recent brutal molestation and death of a local teenage girl. Cole had shown them no mercy, terminating them with cold, bureaucratic efficiency before rolling their car into the abyss. Standing in the center of his command room, Luke reached out to the screen. He pulled up the photos of the 5 thugs, which were connected by glowing red digital threads to the village map. With a single swipe of his finger, a crimson digital X slashed across their faces. The system updated their status in glowing text, eliminated. He turned to the main diagnostic screen, watching the live, thermal security feeds of the mansion perimeter, ensuring the twins and Sarah were safe in the courtyard. Satisfied, he pulled up an encrypted, military-grade satellite comms channel on his handheld device and typed a brief, coded message to FBI Director William Whale, Unit Omega, local sector cleared of immediate variables. Subject, Shadow, remains secure. Perimeter holding. Awaiting the storm. Luke shoved the device into his pocket, staring intensely at the monitoring screens as the bunker lights dimmed. Chapter 6, The Pakistani Outpost and the Genetic Trap. The story shifts away from the lush, rain-shadowed forests of Mount Rainier, crossing the globe to a sun-bleached, barren desert wasteland along the rugged borders of Pakistan. Deep inside a crumbling, abandoned village, dust swirled through the ruins of a stone compound. Operating in complete secrecy to dodge the constant counter-terrorism patrols of both the Indian and Pakistani armies, heavily armed militants stood guard over tables stacked with black market communication gear. Standing in the center of the room was a notorious global extremist leader, his face hardened by decades of conflict. He pressed a military-grade satellite phone to his ear, his voice cutting through the static in a furious, venomous hiss. On the other end of the line, thousands of miles away, sat Victor Warres. You are draining our resources, Victor Warres, and yet your progress is zero. The terrorist leader roared into the receiver, slamming his fist onto the table. We have waited for 20 years. The uranium belongs to us, but you are chasing a ghost. If you cannot find Shadow, we will find someone who can. Victor Warres tried to speak, but the leader cut him off with a dark, low chuckle. Calm your anger. There is an update, the leader continued, his tone turning dangerously cold. Our network just got a tip from the United States. We have found a guy who matches Marcus's exact age, build, and timeline. But we cannot afford to go wrong. We need dead certainty before we make a move. The leader explained the trap. Deep inside the prestigious university where Clara and Vivian were currently studying, the syndicate had successfully planted a mole. Disguised as a simple college chemistry lab assistant, this deep cover informant had been quietly keeping an eye on the twins for weeks, tracking their schedules and routines. Just a few days ago, during an advanced chemistry lab class, the assistant carried out his main mission. While the twins were busy, he secretly collected biological data, stealing used glass puppets and hair strands left behind at their lab desk. The genetic material is already secured and has been sent through an encrypted diplomatic pouch straight to your handlers in the States, the terrorist leader told Victor Warres. Since Victor Warres still had powerful, corrupt contacts deep inside rogue factions of the government, they still had Marcus's original, classified FBI medical records from 20 years ago. All Victor Warres had to do was run a cross-generational DNA match between the stolen college samples and Marcus's old FBI file. If the markers matched, it would prove without a shred of doubt that Clara and Vivian were Marcus's biological daughters. The disguise would be over. The syndicate would have the ultimate leverage to break the legendary Shadow and force him to give up the location of the hidden uranium. The line went dead, leaving Victor Warres staring at the phone as a slow, sadistic smile spread across his face. The net was finally closing in. Chapter 7, The Genetic Match and the Triple Alarm. Deep within the subterranean levels of a private medical facility controlled by the syndicate, a high-tech sequencer hummed in the dark. Victor Warres stood over the glass terminal, his reflection illuminated by the harsh blue light of the monitor. Beside him, a rogue data technician bypassed the final layer of federal encryption, forcing entry into the FBI's deeply buried archives to pull the classified genetic profile of the man once known as Shadow. On screen, two digital strands of DNA began to rotate, aligning side by side. A progress bar flashed in the dark room, comparing data patterns. Marker 01, match, marker 05, match, marker 12, match. Suddenly, a piercing digital chime echoed through the sterile lab. The screen flashed a brilliant, undeniable crimson, genetic paternal relationship. 99.9%, perfect match detected. Victor Waras's face contorted into a mask of pure, sadistic triumph. He threw his head back and roared with laughter, a sound of sheer ecstasy echoing off the concrete walls. Without wasting a single second, he slammed his hand onto a secure transmitter, routing the encrypted confirmation data package across the globe to the extremist compound in the desert. "We have him," Victor Waras hissed into the comms. "The ghost has a family." Chapter 8, The Triple Echo and the Foolproof Trace. The moment that highly classified FBI file was forced open by an unauthorized source, it tripped a hidden, hard-coded digital tripwire, causing anomalies to beep rigorously in two completely separate corners of the world. In Washington, D.C., inside the secure, dimly lit office of the FBI headquarters, a heavily encrypted black smartphone resting on Director William Wale's desk began to vibrate violently, emitting a low, rhythmic distress pulse. Will froze, lowering his glasses. He picked up the device, staring at the flashing red text on the secure screen. His breath caught in his throat. The file had been breached. Will stood up slowly, his face turning pale as the gravity of the situation sank in. "It's happened," he whispered to the empty room. "They found him." Thousands of miles away at the Rainier estate, the second alarm shattered the quiet afternoon. Luke was out in the sun, dressed in his stained servant's clothes, casually wiping down the open-top Jeep with a rug. Suddenly, a violent, high-priority haptic vibration pulsed against his belt, a rhythmic, frantic pattern he had never felt before. Luke's eyes went razor-sharp. He dropped the rug, bypassed the stables, and slipped into the hidden room of the barn, triggering the biometric wall. As the threshold hissed open, the command center was already awash in flashing amber warning lights. Chloe and Jared were hunched over the main holographic console, their faces tight with panic. "Luke, look at the master terminal," Chloe shouted, her fingers flying across the keys. An external, rogue server just accessed Marcus's sealed archival file. The query originated from a syndicate network. Luke didn't panic. He stepped up to the holographic glass table, his fingers flying across the interface with military precision. "They needed a baseline to compare his file to," Luke said calmly. "They wouldn't risk striking without proof. If they queried his DNA, they had a fresh sample. Let's trace the upload packet." With 3 sharp swipes, Luke ran a reverse cyber forensic trace on the syndicate's server. Because the syndicate had to upload the twins' stolen genetic data into their sequencer, the data packet left a digital footprint. "I've got the source IP of the upload," Jared stated, pulling up a map. It originated from an encrypted terminal inside a private medical lab in Seattle. But look at the raw data timestamp. The genetic sequencing file was compiled 3 hours ago. "Trace the source of that genetic file," Luke commanded, his voice cold and calculating. "Where was the physical sample digitized?" The screen flickered, processing the metadata of the syndicate's data stream. A satellite map zoomed in aggressively, bypassing state lines, narrowing down directly onto a specific building, the Advanced Science Department at the Twins University. "The university chemistry lab," Luke murmured, his eyes narrowing as the final pieces of the puzzle locked into place. "They couldn't get past our estate fence, so they targeted the girl's blind spot." "Chloe, pull up the archived internal security feed from the college chemistry lab during the Twins session yesterday. Cross-reference it with our bird drone aerial logs outside the campus." Within seconds, the holographic screen split. On the left, one of Luke's bird drones disguised as a hawk captured a high-definition shot of an unassuming college lab assistant walking out the back door of the university campus, holding a temperature-controlled diplomatic biohazard pouch. On the right, the internal lab camera showed the exact same assistant covertly bagging Clara and Vivian's discarded glass puppets and hair strands from their workstation the moment they stepped away. The lab assistant is a syndicate mole, Luke declared, his posture turning completely rigid. The harmless servant was gone, the elite commander stood in his place. They didn't just guess. They have absolute genetic proof. Lock down all systems. Activate the K9 protocols. The storm is on its way. Chapter 9, The Call. Back in the Grand Villa, the afternoon was quiet and peaceful. Thomas was standing by the large glass window overlooking the courtyard, watching the wind rustle through the trees. Suddenly, his personal, off-grid satellite phone, a device that had remained completely silent for nearly 20 years, began to ring. The sound was jarring, cutting through the silence of the house like a gunshot. Thomas's body instinctively locked into a combat-ready stance. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his face remained a mask of stone. He slowly reached into his pocket, pulled out the phone, and flipped it open. He didn't say a word. He just held it to his ear, listening. Across the static of the encrypted line, a voice chuckled, a slow, mocking, and deeply familiar voice that Thomas had heard in his nightmares for 2 decades. "Hello, my old friend," Victor Warus whispered smoothly. "Were you not expecting me?" Shadow? The moment froze as the reality of the situation took hold across the globe. Victor Warus sat in his dark underground lab, grinning like a demon amidst glowing red data. Thomas stood frozen by the window, his hand gripping the phone as the fury of a sleeping dragon began to stir. Director Will Whale stared out his window in Washington, preparing for a political war. Luke and his team stood ready in their command center, weapons diagnostics booting up. And in the ruins near Pakistan, the extremist leader barked orders to mobilize. The fuse had been lit. Chapter 10, The Shadow Awakens. The heavy silence inside the villa's private study was suffocating. The ringing of the off-grid satellite phone had stopped, but the echo of Victor Warus's voice still vibrated in the chilly air. Thomas stood motionless by the grand glass window, his broad silhouette framed by the moonlight casting over the rugged Mount Rainier forests. The peaceful country gentleman was gone. His shoulders locked back, his jaw tightened, and his breathing slowed into the deliberate, rhythmic pattern of a seasoned hunter. Marcus was fully awake. Sitting on the leather couch across the room, Arthur Pendleton quietly set his reading glasses aside. He didn't look panicked. His eyes held the deep, steady wisdom of a man who had seen the world's ugliest corners. Arthur had kept a profound secret for over 20 years. He had always known that Thomas was Marcus, the legendary Shadow. Decades ago, Arthur was the high-level contact who had quietly offered the broken, fleeing agent a job on the estate, eventually welcoming him into the family as his son-in-law. Arthur leaned forward, resting his weathered hands on the head of his cane. Guided by his fierce instincts as the head of the village, he spoke in a low, commanding tone. "We will handle this, Marcus. I will call in our local security forces. We will lock down the borders of this town and take care of whoever is coming." Marcus slowly turned his head, his eyes boring into his father-in-law with an intensity Arthur hadn't seen in 2 decades. "You don't understand, Arthur," Marcus said, his voice dropping into a chilling, gravelly register. "It's not what you think. It's not a cyclone we can just ride out. This is a catastrophe." Arthur's gaze didn't waver. "Our first priority is humanity, and then our family. You are the only man alive who knows where you hid the uranium. I assume the payload is completely secure?" "It's safe," Marcus replied coldly. "Buried where no satellite or scanner will ever find it. Then we stand and fight," Arthur said firmly. "We secure the perimeter. We have our own men." Marcus didn't have the heart to tell Arthur that the local village guards would be utterly vaporized by the Tier 1 global mercenaries Victor Warus was deploying. Outside the heavy oak doors of the study, the rest of the house remained blissfully ignorant. Sarah was in the kitchen setting the breakfast menu for tomorrow, while Clara and Vivian were upstairs laughing, completely unaware that their world was about to catch fire. Meanwhile, the Black Mountain roads leading into Greenwater were choked with thick fog. Cutting through the mist, a convoy of unlit, heavy-duty black SUVs silently rolled past the village boundary markers. The first batch of syndicate operatives had arrived. Victor Warus was ruthless, but he wasn't stupid. He knew the legend of Shadow, and he wanted to test if the 50-year-old family man still possessed the terrifying, lethal capabilities of the young phantom who had paralyzed the underworld 20 years ago. Inside the lead SUV cutting through the Greenwater fog, the mercenary commander checked the tactical layout of the Pendleton estate flashing on his wrist monitor. Victor Warus's voice crackled through the encrypted comms channel, dropping like ice into the earpiece. "Do not kill Marcus. If he dies, the payload vanishes forever. I don't want his life, I want his soul. Destroy his sanctuary, kill his emotions, execute the wife right in front of him, and take the twin daughters alive. We will break the Shadow piece by piece until he begs to give us the uranium." The mercenaries racked the bolts of their suppressed automatic rifles, their thermal scopes calibrating to target the glowing heat signatures of the villa. The storm had officially breached the village. Chapter 11: The Global Alliance. The fog over the mountain roads of Greenwater grew thicker, swallowing the headlights of the syndicate's black SUVs. The storm had officially breached the village. Inside the villa's private study, Marcus and Arthur stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes locked onto the dark tree line beyond the glass. The air inside the room was heavy, thick with the silent preparation of two veterans wrapping their minds around an incoming war. Marcus checked the action of his hidden sidearm, his movements completely stripped of the peaceful, retired country gentleman persona he had worn for 20 years. He was the legendary Shadow once more. Together with his father-in-law, they were as prepared as two men could be against an unseen vanguard. Across the courtyard, deep inside the high-tech sanctuary of the Western Barn, Luke and his command team were on their toes. Flashing orange warnings illuminated Chloe and Jared's tense faces. The biometric wall was sealed tight, the drone diagnostics were green, and the automated defensive grids were armed. They were watching the perimeter breathe. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., FBI Director William Whale was living in a nightmare. The anomaly warning on his secure phone had confirmed the breach of Marcus's classified profile. Paralyzed by the knowledge that high-level corrupt politicians had historically aided the syndicate, Will paced his dark office. He couldn't trust his own agency. He couldn't trust his deputies. Unsure of how deep the moles ran within his own ranks, he frantically looked for his most trusted inner circle, desperate for a clean line of communication. While these factions held their breath in the United States, the fuse was already being cut on the other side of the world. In the sun-bleached wadis along the rugged border of Pakistan, the main compound of the global extremist network was completely cut off from the world. Inside, the phone lines were dead. Before the guards could even raise their rifles, a shadow fell over the compound. Operating under absolute, deniable protocols from the Raw Control Center in New Delhi, the elite commandos known in whispers as the Unknown Men struck with surgical, terrifying precision. There were no loud explosions, no prolonged firefights, just the rhythmic, suppressed crack of Tier 1 rifles cutting through the dust. Within minutes, the extremist leader and his entire inner den were successfully eliminated. The lead commando jammed a tactical data siphon into the terrorist leader's primary mainframe. As the encrypted files poured into the drive, the raw analysts back in New Delhi ran a deep space forensic sweep of the transactions. The results shocked the control room. They uncovered a massive web of untraceable digital currency flowing directly from Victor Warus to the Deep Cover University laboratory assistant in Washington state. Looking at the sheer volume of the syndicate's global movements, the Raw Directorate realized the terrifying reality of what Victor Warus was actually hunting: weaponized, world-altering uranium. Because the threat involved a global nuclear catastrophe, a highly classified, bilateral black budget wing existing entirely between the FBI and Raw instantly went active. The flash tip from New Delhi bypassed the standard, compromised diplomatic channels and was beamed directly to a clean terminal in Washington, D.C. A heavy knock echoed through Director Will Wales' private office door. Will's hand instinctively drifted toward his desk drawer, but the door opened to reveal a man who didn't carry himself like a standard federal bureaucrat. It was Vijay, codename Agent Number 1. Vijay was a legendary raw operative, an elite field officer deployed to the United States as the spearhead of the bilateral tactical guard. He was built like a stone wall, dressed in a sharp, dark tactical suit, carrying a heavy encrypted briefcase. Director Whale, Vijay said, his voice smooth, steady, and carrying a deep, authoritative weight. The grid is compromised, but my line is clean. RAW has neutralized the cell in Pakistan. We harvested their data ledger. Vijay slammed the briefcase onto the desk, opening the holographic display. The complete file flashed to life, showing the university lab assistant's identity, Victor Warris's active mercenary coordinates, and the exact movement of the vanguard heading toward Mount Rainier. Will's eyes widened as he scanned the rapid developments. They have his DNA baseline. They know exactly who he is, Vijay. The strike team is already on the ground in Greenwater. Then we move, Vijay replied, his jaw tight as he readied his personal sidearm. We coordinate the heavy logistics from here, bypass the corrupted federal channels, and mobilize our off-grid support. Standing over the glowing files, Will Whale and Agent Number 1 rapidly began organizing the emergency tactical logist. Chapter 12, The Gates of Hell. The late afternoon sun was drifting behind the jagged peaks of Mount Rainier, casting long, bleeding shadows across the sprawling Pendleton estate. It was that deceptive hour of dusk, not completely light, not completely dark. On the manicured lawn outside the Grand Villa, the atmosphere was peaceful. Sarah sat at a wrought iron table, quietly sipping coffee with her father, Arthur. Nearby, Clara and Vivian were laughing over a game of cards, entirely unbothered by the chilly mountain breeze. Near the open-top Jeep parked by the stables, Luke was casually wiping down the hood with a rag, playing the part of the harmless, loyal caretaker. But 30 miles away, trapped on a treacherous, winding mountain road, Marcus was living in a state of escalating panic. He had driven into town to procure heavy survival equipment, but on his return trip, 3 unmarked black SUVs had aggressively swerved across the asphalt, completely blocking the pass. Marcus slammed his hands against the steering wheel of his SUV, his eyes fixed on his dashboard monitor. He had synced his personal off-grid surveillance feed to the screen, and what he saw made his blood run cold. A massive vanguard, nearly 80 heavily armed syndicate mercenaries, had surrounded the perimeter of his estate. They were moving in synchronization, spreading across the imposing outer fence line like a plague of locusts. Suddenly, the screen glitched. The master grid went dark. The estate's backup power system had been remotely severed by a syndicate cyber strike. The estate was instantly plunged into 80% darkness, illuminated only by the faint, 20% residual glow of the dying sun. No, no, no. Marcus roared, pinning the accelerator. His SUV fishtail edged violently as he slammed into the side of a mercenary vehicle, attempting to ram his way through the blockade. A fierce, high-speed firefight exploded on the mountain pass as Marcus shot through his own windshield, desperately trying to drive back to his family while the enemy did everything to slow him down. Back at the mansion, the peaceful evening evaporated into absolute horror. A series of violent, deafening explosions tore through the silence as the mercenaries used heavy breaching charges to detonate the outer concrete walls. The shockwaves shattered the villa's glass windows into millions of pieces. Servants and staff screamed in absolute panic, scattering in every direction as the 80-man vanguard descended upon the property like a black tornado, heavy automatic gunfire lighting up the dark. Arthur's old instincts flared instantly. He drew a hidden sidearm from his jacket, standing firmly in front of Sarah and the twins, firing blindly into the incoming smoke. "Get inside. Move," he bellowed. But the sheer volume of incoming lead was overwhelming. A stray mercenary round tore through the dusk air, striking Arthur squarely in the shoulder. He gasped, dropping his weapon, and collapsed onto the stone patio, slipping into unconsciousness. Sarah screamed, throwing her body over her bleeding father, while Clara and Vivian huddled together in pure terror, trapped in the open air as bullets tore the lawn to shreds. Through the thick haze of cordite, two massive syndicate mercenaries emerged, their combat knives unsheathed, moving rapidly to seize the twins and execute Sarah. Right then, the clumsy servant vanished forever. Luke moved with a velocity that defied human physics. In a single, fluid blur, his arms crossed beneath his jacket, drawing twin suppressed tactical pistols. Agent Cole had awakened. Thweep THWIP. A single, devastating double tap echoed through the courtyard. Both mercenaries dropped instantly, neutralized in mid-stride. Chloe and Jared materialized from the shadows right behind him, their posture rigid, dominant, and operating in elite tactical mode. Form a perimeter. Cover the assets. Cole barked, his voice carrying the icy authority of a seasoned commander. With absolute precision, Cole, Chloe, and Jared formed an unbreakable human shield around the terrified women. Moving in a synchronized, defensive drift walk, they fired highly controlled bursts into the oncoming swarm, dropping every mercenary who stepped into their path as they systematically pushed the family toward the western barn. Miles down the mountain road, Marcus watched the feed on his dashboard screen while drifting his SUV around a sharp corner, crushing a mercenary under his wheels. He stared at the monitor in absolute astonishment. His jaw dropped. The clumsy boy who washed his cars was moving like a Tier 1 operator, executing flawless tactical sweeps alongside Chloe and Jared to protect his family. Who the hell are they? Marcus thought, his mind racing as he fought his way through his own gauntlet. Cole kicked open the massive, rustic wooden doors of the western barn, ushering the panicked family into the dark interior. Outside, the sounds of heavy gunfire and shouting mercenaries were closing in fast. The family was completely disoriented. "Luke, what is this? What are you doing?" Clara cried out, her eyes wide with shock, looking at the bleeding bodies outside and then at the cold, lethal weapons in the hands of the boy she loved. Cole didn't answer. He aggressively cleared a stack of weathered wood, revealing a pristine, high-tech glass interface embedded into the hidden steel frame of the wall. He slammed his palm against the glass. A green laser swept across his skin. Access granted, Agent Cole wailed with a heavy pneumatic hiss. A seamless section of the barn wall slid away, revealing the glowing, futuristic expanse of the command center. The family gasped, completely stunned by the sight of an ultra-modern military bunker hidden inside their own rustic estate. Clara stared at Cole, utterly paralyzed by the terrifying, powerful side of him she had never seen before. Arthur, recovering consciousness slightly as Jared held him, looked at the glowing tech. The fog in the old man's mind cleared instantly. "An agent," Arthur whispered, realization washing over him. "He sent them to guard you, Marcus. Stay inside. You are completely safe here," Cole told Sarah and Clara, his voice dropping into a gentle but firm tone. "The glass is reinforced, and the door is completely unhackable from the outside." Cole stepped back across the threshold and hit the manual lock. The heavy steel door slid shut with a pressurized seal, completely camouflaging back into the wooden wall. To the mercenaries entering the barn, the room would look entirely empty. Turning back to the storm, Cole adjusted his earpiece, his face turning to pure stone. "Jared, Chloe, it's time. Unleash the hounds." Inside the bunker, Sarah, Clara, and the wounded Arthur walked slowly through the command room, their eyes wide with disbelief as they looked at the massive holographic screens displaying real-time thermal feeds of the entire estate. Then, Sarah's eyes locked onto the master digital whiteboard, and the breath completely caught in her throat. There, connected by glowing red digital tactical lines, was a faded, nostalgic portrait photo from 20 years ago. It showed a young, powerful Marcus standing shoulder to shoulder with his best friend Will Whale, a beautiful woman named Elena, and a small, smiling 9-year-old boy named Cole. But as Clara stepped closer, her gaze drifted down the intersecting red tactical threads on the screen, and she gasped, covering her mouth. Clustered right below the old family photo were the 5 mugshots of the local thugs who had assaulted them in town just yesterday. Across each of their faces was a bright, glowing crimson X, stamped with the cold, authoritative system status, eliminated. The realization hit Clara like a physical blow. The morning news broadcast flashed through her mind, the perfect plunge into the freezing lake, the lack of skid marks, the tragic accident. It hadn't been an act of God. It had been him. It was you. Clara whispered, her voice trembling as happy, overwhelmed tears spilled over her cheeks. She looked back at the childhood photo of the smiling 9-year-old boy named Cole, then out toward the closed steel door where the man she loved had just departed to face an army alone. Every clumsy stumble, every innocent smile, every time he had humbly apologized for not being strong enough to protect them, it was all a mask. He hadn't been a helpless servant out of his depth. He was a lethal, elite guardian angel who had been silently walking in their shadows for 4 years, absorbing a physical blow to protect his cover, and then unleashing cold, merciless vengeance in the dead of night to ensure those monsters could never touch them again. Sarah pulled Clara close, both of them completely stunned by the sheer depth of the protection surrounding their lives. Arthur let out a breathless, emotional laugh, tears rolling into the creases of his eyes as he looked at the grand tactical map. William, Arthur whispered hoarsely, his voice filled with profound gratitude. The bastard didn't forget his friend. He sent his own son to shield us from the dark. Outside, the battle reached a crescendo. Cole stood in the center of the dark courtyard, surrounded by the shadows of 30 approaching mercenaries. He tapped his collar mic, projecting a cold, vocal command override code Alpha Omega. Unleash the Phantoms. Deploy the K9 battalion. Marcus, finally breaching the outer estate gates in his battered SUV, slammed on the brakes. He stared through his windshield, completely paralyzed by the cinematic wonder unfolding before his eyes. Beneath the grass perimeter of the barn, the earth split open. 2 massive, mechanical launch towers slowly rose from the ground like ejecting multi-missile silos. With a deafening, high-pitched mechanical whine, the pods opened. What followed was a masterpiece of technological warfare. From the upper towers, a massive swarm of hundreds of sleek, aerodynamic fighter drones launched into the sky like a flock of silver hornets, their synchronized thrusters humming a terrifying bass line. Simultaneously, the lower bays hissed open, and a ground force battalion of 50 AI-powered mechanical fighter dogs, built with gleaming, heavy carbon fiber armor and glowing crimson optic sensors, poured onto the lawn. The 80 mercenaries realized with sudden, chilling clarity that they were no longer the hunters. They had become the prey. The drone swarm spread effortlessly across the dark sky, dropping into tight indoor hallways and open fields, identifying targets via thermal optics. Non-lethal but devastating plasma bursts and tracking rounds rained down from the sky, dropping syndicate operatives one after another in a flash. On the ground, the K9 mechanical beasts moved with terrifying, predatory speed. They leapt over the stone walls, slamming into the mercenaries with heavy armored efficiency, pinning them to the earth and neutralizing their weapons with surgical precision. Amidst the mechanical chaos, the right-hand commander of Victor Warasar's syndicate charged toward the barn with a heavy weapon. Cole intercepted him. In a brutal, lightning-fast display of close-quarters hand-to-hand combat, Cole dodged a sweeping strike, parried the commander's weapon, and delivered a devastating tactical takedown, slamming the right-hand point man face first onto the stone. Pei was unconscious. Within 90 seconds, the entire 80-man vanguard lay entirely dismantled across the lawn. The mechanical dogs stood in a protective perimeter, their red sensors pulsing in the quiet dark. The roar of Marcus's SUV engine cut through the sudden, heavy silence hanging over the ruined courtyard. He threw the door open, stepping out onto the debris-covered patio. His breathing was heavy, his tailored jacket torn from his own chaotic escape on the mountain roads. He stood under the dim moonlight, his prior doubts completely clarified. He walked slowly toward the young caretaker, his eyes locked onto him with the terrifying, razor-sharp intensity of the original Shadow. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus demanded, his voice trembling with a raw, volatile mixture of fury, shock, and absolute awe. Cole didn't speak. He simply turned, his movements military straight, and walked back into the dark barn. He touched the concealed biometric scanner once more. The seamless wall hissed open with a pressurized release, and the emotional, crying figures of Sarah and Clara stepped out into the light, followed closely by Jared supporting a wounded, semi-conscious Arthur. Marcus rushed forward, throwing his arms around Sarah and Clara, holding them tight against his chest. But as he looked up over their shoulders, his eyes frantically scanned the interior of the bunker, then the open courtyard. His heart completely stopped. "Where is Vivian?" Marcus asked, his voice suddenly dropping into a hollow, terrifying whisper of pure panic. "Where is Vivi?" Sarah and Clara pulled back, looking around frantically, the horrific realization hitting them like a physical blow. In the chaotic tornado of the initial explosion, the blinding smoke, and the frantic retreat to the hidden barn, Vivian had been separated from the group. Suddenly, a rhythmic, deafening thumping sound echoed from the pitch-black skies above the estate, vibrating right through the valley. A massive, unlit tactical helicopter rose aggressively over the tree line, its powerful rotor blades kicking up a blinding, violent storm of dust, leaves, and glass shards across the courtyard. A blinding, high-intensity spotlight snapped on from the chopper's belly, pinning Marcus and Cole in a harsh, white glare. Leaning out of the open side door of the helicopter was Victor Warris himself, a twisted, victorious sneer stretching across his scarred face. Clutched tightly in his heavy, unyielding grip, bound and struggling desperately, was Vivian. "Help! Dad! Luke!" Vivian screamed, her voice cutting through the deafening roar of the engines as she looked down at the courtyard below. Victor Warris looked down at Marcus, his eyes gleaming with a sadistic, absolute triumph. He didn't say a single word over the roar of the rotors, he just tapped his wrist, pointing a mocking finger directly at Marcus, letting him know that the ultimate leverage had been secured. The helicopter tilted sharply, its turbo shaft screaming as it accelerated into the dark mountain sky, disappearing over the frozen peaks of Mount Rainier. But before the darkness could swallow the scene, the long, unlit driveway erupted with a blinding sea of flashing red and blue strobe lights. A massive, elite convoy of unmarked black FBI tactical vehicles tore through the shattered outer gates of the estate, their reinforced tires throwing gravel into the air as they screeched to a halt in a flawless defensive perimeter. The heavy armored doors of the command SUV swung open. Stepping down onto the debris-covered lawn, his face lined with the gravity of a 20-year search, was Director William Wade. Right beside him, moving with the coiled, lethal grace of a top-tier operator, was Vijay, Agent Number 1, his sharp eyes instantly scanning the neutralized mercenary vanguard. Marcus turned slowly. For a fraction of a second, the two old friends, the legendary duo who had once paralyzed the global underworld, simply stared at each other across the smoke and ruin. 20 years of hiding, 20 years of unsaid words, and 20 years of heavy guilt dissolved in a single heartbeat. Heavy, emotional tears rolled down Marcus's weathered cheeks. He took 3 long strides forward, and the two men threw their arms around each other in a powerful, fierce embrace. The ghosts of the past had finally brought them back together. As they stepped back, Cole walked out from the shadow of the western barn, his twin tactical pistols securely holstered, his posture perfectly straight. The submissive caretaker persona was completely gone, replaced by the elite operative who had just dismantled an army. Cole looked at the director, the professional distance melting away from his face for the first time in 4 long years. "Dad," Cole said softly, his voice thick with emotion. Will Wade turned, his eyes shining with profound pride as he looked at his son. He reached out, gripping Cole's shoulder with a strength that spoke volumes. "You held the line, son. You kept them safe." Vijay stepped forward beside Marcus, his expression turning entirely clinical as he looked up at the dark mountain sky where the helicopter had vanished. "The reunion will have to wait, old friend," Agent Number 1 said, his voice dropping into a low, authoritative register as he tapped his wrist-mounted satellite tracker. "Victor Warris has the girl, but my raw tracking link is already live. We have a lock on the chopper's telemetry." Marcus wiped the tears from his face, his eyes shifting from a father's heartbreak to the cold, terrifying glare of an apex predator. Shadow was fully back, and this time, he had an international armada standing right behind him. The real war has officially begun. End of Volume 1.